Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see what if Beast Deku fell in love with Setsuna? Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. A Girl and Her Dinosaur by Lestat 719 by Lestat 719. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Life was good. Setsuna Tokage, age 16, was living a good life. She had just passed the most challenging entrance exam in the nation, gaining entrance to the prestigious and most illustrious school. Not only had she passed the recommended exam, but she had also finished second in the written and third in the practical exams. As a recommendation student, you were not only considered some of the best, if not the best, students heading into the year, but also had duties beyond average students. Such was the case today for the standard entrance exams. Her fellow recommendation classmates were here to observe and help her score the practical exam. She was having fun sitting with Momo Yaoyorozu, who had placed first in the exam and came from a distinguished family. The girl was everything one would expect: beautiful, refined, and astute. She was also shy, nervous, excitable, and happy to talk to someone. When Setsuna offered to exchange numbers so they could talk and meet up to hang out, Momo's look of happiness nearly struck Setsuna blind. On top of that, Momo had an adorable blush and was a delight to tease. When Set introduced her friends, the same friends who were taking the field today, one would have thought Momo would faint simply from being invited to join the group text. Set settled in to watch her group of examines under the watchful eye of midnight. Sadly, he wasn't on her screen. For you see, Setsuna Tokage was a shameless flirt who loved to tease, play jokes, and have fun. Anyone in her circle was fair game. Even those on the peripheries were unsafe. But today, she, Momo, Juzo, and Shoto, the other two who passed the recommended exam, was on hall duty helping direct students to their testing hall. Then he walked up to them. Setsuna instantly fell for him: curly green hair, emerald green eyes, and cute diamond-shaped freckles. "Excuse me, can you tell me where testing hall 3 is?" this Adonis had asked her. Noises escaped Setsuna, along with a giggle, and then she fled. Momo was startled and extremely confused, directing the young man where to go. Set had tried to play it off upon her return, but Momo did not believe Set's excuse for allergies. Now Set was looking at the screens, and her Adonis was nowhere to be found. Maybe he declined to take the practical exam or looked to enter the general studies course. Had the Greek god just disappeared? What if he didn't get in at all? Was he to be lost to her forever? Midnight gently reminded Setsuna to focus on her task, and she set about it crestfallen. She watched as students went about their practical exams. Her attention was caught by this one examinee: wild spiked red hair. When he took to the field, he stopped at the starting line with what could only be described as a look of constipation. Then, suddenly, his exterior began to shift, and he looked like he had grown in height and mass. Where the boy once stood, he was now a spiky rock man. He thundered into the battle. Once he began to move, he tore through the robots like a monster. Strength, speed, roughness. This guy had it all. How could he not have been part of the recommended exam? She wondered. She watched as he protected other students from the robots but let them get the points. This guy, examine number 6390, was dominating the test, and he, along with examine number 3651, an explosive ash blonde with a similar hairstyle. Set wondered if they were related or something, had been moved to the big screens in front of the professors and some skeletal guy. Set didn't get his name, but the principal often talked to him. She also saw her friend Tetsu on the big screen, and then she heard the principal cackle as he hit a big red button. The entire exam shifted as these gigantic robots were unleashed onto the field. It is said that a person's true nature is revealed in moments of fear. She watched as the students fled, even the big rock guy. She could see disappointed looks across the faces of the faculty. Then, the screens shifted. She saw a girl with brown hair trapped under some rubble, examiner number 9274, struggling to escape as examiners ran away. But no one was going to help the poor girl. Then suddenly, a green gorilla appeared, grabbed the rubble, pinning her, and tossed it aside. Then, the zero-pointer came around the corner. The thing unleashed a terrifying horn blast that echoed across the battlefield. Then Setsuna saw the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. The green gorilla looking at the robot and looking at examine number 9274. The gorilla morphed into an honest-to-goodness T-Rex in a lovely shade of green. Setsuna Tokage loved dinosaurs. As a little girl, she would pray and beg for a pet dinosaur. She read books on the subject, collected memorabilia, and watched all the media she could find. She still prayed for the chance to see a real dinosaur, dreamed of dinosaurs, and, in fact, still wore anything she could find with dinosaurs on it. Now, there was one. It roared a challenge at the zero-pointer and attacked. The control room erupted as everyone witnessed a childhood fantasy, robot versus dinosaur. A titanic struggle ensued, and the zero-pointer tried to fight back. It launched an attack on a poor girl who appeared to be injured as she tried to get to her feet but fell, grabbing at her ankle, but the T-Rex protected her. This cowardly attack by the zero-pointer seemed to enrage the Trex even more. Set witnessed Power Loader trying desperately to shut the zero-pointer down. It would not comply. Nature versus technology, robotics versus ancient beast. The argument would be settled, and in this battle of wills between the T-Rex and the zero-pointer, the T-Rex would not be denied when it tore its head off. The Trex stood upon its fallen opponent and let out a roar that blew the speakers in the monitoring room and froze everyone across every testing area. The T-Rex shimmered, and Set saw her Adonis floating in the sky, smiling on his unconscious face, as he fell. He was wearing a black compression tank top and bicycle shorts. The control booth erupted, yelling for proctors to catch the boy, and then the girl sprung into action, diving and tagging the Adonis, causing him to float and be spared from hitting the ground. Set let out a scream of triumph and made a strangled noise as she fainted. Momo sprang into action, catching her friend. On this day, Setsuna Tokage found the boy who had stolen her heart when she first laid eyes on him. Then, she saw that same boy turn into a dinosaur and capture her dreams. Best day ever. Izuku woke in the medical wing of the UA. He was handcuffed to the bed, and he felt the cold stare of the law. Slowly, he turned his head, and sure enough, he was right. "Detective," he said calmly, jingling the handcuffs. "Are these necessary?" "Well, seeing how you decided to escape your confinement today," the detective replied. "I understand, detective, but I had decided that the risk was worth the reward," he replied. "Very interesting," the detective said, "and if I was to decide that another month would be added to your sentence." "I understand, detective, but as I said, I believe that my original confinement was unjustified as I was peacefully protesting the treatment of the animals in that facility," he said. "I would also like to submit that I paid the fine myself, and the city's finest detective later investigated that facility and charges of animal cruelty have been filed." The detective raised an eyebrow with a small smile, tugging at the corners of her mouth. "My confinement restricted me to home and school. Technically, I am in a school." "But this isn't your school," the detective countered. "Not yet," Izuku said, raising an eyebrow. The smile that the detective had been finally fighting broke loose. "I also suspect that you knew that I was going to come here today as there was an unopened box of my protein bars on the kitchen counter. Someone gave them to me at work," she shrugged. "No one in the Prescient likes those things, so I heard you battled a giant robot today." "I sure did. I turned into a T-Rex and beat it down," Izuku said. "That explains why you passed out." She removed the handcuffs and kissed him on the forehead. "I love you, Izuku. Let me go sign some paperwork, and we can head home." "Love you too, Mom," he replied. Inko walked out of the room and down the hall to where Recovery Girl was waiting. She walked in and saw Nezu and Midnight there as well. She didn't notice that Midnight was snapping a photo of her. Inko was wearing a pair of black stiletto boots, jeans that looked like she had been poured into, a fitted Wild Pussycats shirt that read, "Wild Ride," and her long, curly green hair pulled back into a ponytail. "Hello, detective," Nezu said. "I wasn't aware your son was trying out for UA. Like most of them, he has been dreaming about it since childhood. I enjoyed his quirk much more because it was only kittens and puppies he would turn into." Inko smiled as Recovery Girl reviewed the release forms. "So, Detective Midoriya," Midnight said, getting to her feet, "I was wondering if you wanted to grab some dinner?" "Sure, as you promised to buy me dessert. I love something sweet," Inko said with a smile as she walked out. Midnight shuddered and waited for the door to close before jumping up and down and pumping her fist. She pulled out her phone and fired off a group text. shoving it back into her pocket gleefully as it began sounding crazy. Nezu raised an eyebrow before shaking his head. Human mating rituals continue to baffle me. Detective Midoriya has stolen the hearts of most of the pro-heroines, and there is a standing competition to see which one can land her, Chio said. Rumi took her to lunch last week. Interesting, Nezu smirked. Setsuna she woke up early and was dressed in her uniform. Admiring herself in the mirror, she waited for Momo, who insisted on picking her friend up for the first day. Momo was excited to be in the same class as Set and her new friends. Set received the text that they had arrived. She stepped outside, yelling goodbye to an empty house, and saw a limo waiting. Set shook her head and smiled at her driver as he opened the door so she could enter. She wanted to laugh at how Itsuka and Tetsu looked afraid to touch anything, contrasted with Momo's excitement from seeing Set. Itsuka's teal eyes darted around the limo, and her fiery orange hair was pulled into its trademark side ponytail. Tetsu's silver hair looked barely contained, which was normal for him. He kept his hands in his lap, clasped firmly, avoiding touching anything. Of course, Momo's spiky black hair was pulled into a ponytail, and she managed to make the standard UA look couture. They made small talk as Set was distracted. She was praying that her dinosaur Adonis would be in their class or that she might at least be able to see him today. He had to have made it into the hero course, she thought. Daydreaming about something, Momo said, bringing Set back to reality. Only about you and that bathing suit last week, Set replied as Momo blushed. Did you wear that for little ol' me? Set wiggled her eyebrows. Or were you attempting to seduce Itsuka and Tetsu? She whispered as she leaned in close. Or was the little heiress attempting to seduce us all for her sinful delights? Momo went nuclear, sputtering as she attempted to defend herself. It was a one piece, she spat out, sitting back, holding her cheeks as Set's laughter filled the car. First thing, Itsuka said, raising an eyebrow. Be nice to Momo. She picked us up after all. Tetsu, you changed seats with Momo. Why me? Tetsu whined. Because I said so, Itsuka pointed as Tetsu switched seats. It's okay, Momo. We know Set was only kidding. Your bathing suit was just fine. It was? Momo said, looking at Itsuka with big eyes. Yes, Setsuna is evil. She has already switched to Tetsu. Momo looked over and was stunned. Somehow, Tetsu was hog-tied on the limo floor, and his tie was used as a gag. And that is when the cow said, I said moo, not who. Set started to laugh. Momo and Itsuka looked into Tetsu's pleading eyes and promptly looked out the window, ignoring his muffled pleas. Class 1B Setsuna and her friends arrived at school exceptionally early and went to their class to help make sure everything was ready for the first day. Momo and Set had been given instructions from their homeroom teacher, Vlad King, about picking up paperwork from the teacher's lounge, gym uniforms from the athletic department, and other tasks. They saw Shoto and Juzo doing the same functions. The heterochromatic teen, with his white and red hair, one black and one blue eye, wore his usual scowl and ignored them. Even with the scar that marred his face, he was still handsome, but his attitude was in the toilet. Juzo is a young man with pale skin, angular eyes, and mid-length spiked hair that is beige. He has a flat nose and small eyebrows, but his most distinctive feature is his teeth, which protrude from outside his lips, giving him a skull-like appearance. He has no discernible lips, which only adds to his unique appearance. Juzo smiled and did his best to make up for his less personable partner, talking with the girls and asking them if they were excited about their first day. All the while, Shoto would roll his eyes or look away. You know, if you roll your eyes any harder, they're going to fall out of your head and run away from you, Set finally said, having enough of his attitude. Set. Momo said, shocked. What did you say? Shoto replied, his gaze narrowing. I don't know what your problem is, but first you got into a fight with that guy at the exam. Then you have been super rude to everyone while we have just been trying to be friendly, and now you are being a dick, rolling your eyes and acting so above everything, Set said, ignoring the plea from Momo. I am not here to make friends, and I am here to prove that I will be the best, Shoto said. Now, how about we finish what we came to do so I don't have to listen to your inane ramblings? Fine, Set growled. Once they were done, Juzo tried to apologize. You don't need to apologize, Juzo. I was annoyed by the eye-rolling and bad attitude. I mean, it is the first freaking day. We made it into the UA. It wasn't some guarantee for the rest of us. Not like any of the rest are the children of the top pro heroes. Momo and Juzo smiled as they separated, and the girls returned to class. Itsuka and Tetsu had returned from the cafeteria with some hot tea and snacks for Momo and said as they could now relax and wait to meet their classmates. The first to arrive was Yosetsu Awase. Yosetsu had long black hair spiked upwards and backward to his left. He also has rounded gray eyes that are slightly tilted inwards. He wears a wide headband with a zigzag pattern around his forehead, which he pulls down relatively low to keep his hair out of his eyes. He smiled when he opened the door and saw he wasn't the first one there. Momo and Setsuna got up and went to the front of the class to introduce themselves and show him the seating chart. They handed him his athletic uniform and introduction packet. After that, he walked over and introduced himself to Tetsu and Itsuka. Next came Sen Kaibara. Senator has a modest athletic build, dark shaggy hair, and thin, lazy-looking dark eyes. He also has a slight tan. Sen raised an eyebrow at the two girls but smiled and introduced himself to everyone before moving to his seat. Tagaru Kamakiri is a tall and slender young man. His skin has a pale yellow-green hue. He has a bright, fluffy green mohawk and dark green eyes pointed downwards towards the center of his face. Two hooked blades jut out from either of his cheeks. He has no visible nose, and the shape of his head resembles that of a praying mantis with mandibles. He arrived with a short girl with a round face and a short equine muzzle. She has thick, wavy blonde hair that reaches halfway down her back, with shorter bangs hanging down her forehead. Her eyes are large and round, of the color Prussian blue. Additionally, she has a pair of tall, lyre-shaped, pale tan horns on her head. Her calves are notably rounded, shaped similarly to those of a horse, and she has brown hooves for feet and a short horse tail poking out from the end of her tailbone. The girl thanked Tagaru for showing her the way. She appeared to be American and had a slight accent. She introduced herself as Pony Tsunodori. She was relatively friendly, while Tagaru seemed happy not to have to talk with the girl anymore and just went to his seat. Pony had barely made her way to her seat when Hiryu Rin came into the room out of breath. He looked around, and seeing Pony, he began to chastise her for running off and getting lost. Once he caught his breath, Pony apologized. As she had gotten excited about meeting her new classmates, he bowed to Momo and Setsuna, introducing himself. Hiryu has slightly tanned skin and black hair that falls to his shoulders, styled in a low braid. His eyes are reptilian in shape, and his irises are notably small. Hiryu explained that he and Pony were exchange students and had gotten to know each other when they moved into their dorm on the other side of campus. He was Chinese, and Pony was American. Next, he heard two people talking. One rather loudly about how he was glad to be placed in 1B as 1A was simply inferior, while the other, a girl, was saying that she didn't think it was nice to say such things on the first day and that they should try to get along with their sister class. The young man is of average height and has slick blonde hair, which becomes shorter as it goes down his head. He styles it so that it is parted to the right, with his bangs left hanging over his right eye. His irises are a periwinkle blue, and his pupils are white. His eyes are slanted downwards towards the far sides of his face, and he usually leaves them half closed. His smirk and head tilt give him a rather contemptuous look. He loudly introduced himself as Nato Monoma, almost expecting everyone to acknowledge him. He started to try and strike up a conversation with Momo, who politely excused herself so she could greet the girl who had entered with him. He went to this seat and sat down, looking annoyed. The girl's name is Kanoko Komori, a short and relatively thin person with honey brown hair styled in a mushroom-shaped bob that falls below her narrow shoulders. Her long fringe completely covers her eyes, and her mouth is large. When her eyes are visible, they are wide and cat-like, with a warm brown iris and rather long lower eyelashes. Interestingly, her pupils are little black crosses that resemble the caps of cross-sliced shiitake mushrooms. Strangely, she asked if Momo and Setsuna liked mushrooms, and when they said they did, the girl seemed unusually happy. Jiroda Shishida and Ibara Shiozaki were next. As they entered the class, they seemed to have a religious versus philosophical debate about right and wrong. Jiroda is a young man with a beastly appearance and is quite tall. He has shaggy brown hair that covers most of his body. His jaw protrudes quite a bit, and he has sharp teeth with two lower canines sticking up between his lips. Additionally, He wears small rectangular glasses with thick black lenses. He was on the philosophical side. Ibara is a girl of medium height. Her hair is made up of green, thorn-covered vines that extend from above her forehead down to her waist, with one set wrapped around her forehead in the shape of a cross. She has dark green eyes with long lower eyelashes and took the religious side of the debate. They stopped long enough to introduce themselves to everyone but continued the discussion as they returned to their seats. Setsuna was happy to meet her classmates as she greeted Nirengeki Shota, an average height and a chubby young man with short ice blue hair, wide eyes, small pupils, and a round face. He looks sheepish and apologetic with eyebrows pointed upwards. Manga Fukidashi is a short man with a pale white speech bubble for a head that displays written thoughts. Momo blushed, and Setsuna managed to contain her laughter when his speech bubble displayed the word, "Wow." When talking to Momo before he fled to his seat, Set was getting a bit more anxious as with each new arrival. None were the ones she had prayed to be there. Yui Kodai is a young girl with short hair swept to the right and hanging above her eyes. She has fair skin, an athletic build, and blue eyes, often wearing a neutral expression. She came in wordlessly, instead choosing to wave to the class. She barely whispered her name before taking her seat. Reiko Yanagi at least said her name a bit louder before doing the same. Reiko is a young woman of pale skin and average height. Her pale gray hair is chin-length and parted on her right side, mainly covering her face's left side. She has dark bags under her blue eyes and a small mouth with full lips. Her hands are often held up as high as her elbows, draped down, giving her a ghost-like appearance. Shitai Kuroiro is a tall young man with white fluffy hair, thin black eyes, and pitch-black skin, most likely due to his quirk. He came in with Kosei Subaraba, who has short, brown hair that spikes up at odd angles on his head. His eyes are oval-shaped, with large pupils. They came in laughing about something. They looked at the nearly complete class and introduced themselves. Set looked at the class. Only one seat was unaccounted for. She didn't even realize she had let out a sigh. Momo leaned over to her friend. "Don't worry, Setsuna. I am sure you will be here." "I don't know what you are talking about," Set said. The flew open before she could say more. Izuku Midoriya, his phone alarm didn't go off. That was the lie he had told himself. In truth, they had both gone off, but he had been up late, unable to sleep due to excitement, and had turned them off now that he was late. He scrambled about the house, frantically trying to get ready. He checked the train schedule and it said he would need more time to make it. Drastic measures had to be taken. Hopefully, he wouldn't get caught. Clutching his uniform, he opened the window and dove out in his special underwear, a piece of toast in his mouth. He shimmered in midair, taking the form of a hawk. With a quick, nearly frantic beating of his wings, he was airborne, racing towards UA. When reports came into the police station of a green hawk carrying a school uniform and eating a piece of toast, the officer smiled and ensured that was where the report began and ended. Izuku landed in some bushes and raced towards his class. Izuku was a good student and kid, but he had a habit of oversleeping and, as such, had developed the rare skill of dressing as he ran. Midnight watched the near-naked student moving quickly through the hall. She was going to say something, but she marveled at how he leapt into the air and managed to land with his pants on. She followed, watching the feet of him getting dressed as he moved through the building. He reached the door to 1B. His shirt was tucked, pants on, shoes, belt, blazer, his tie while it had won this round. He threw open the door and nearly tripped in his haste. The class turned to the commotion as he stood there, breathing hard. He looked at the clock and was 2 minutes early. He threw his hand up in exuberance. "Made it," he yelled. He saw two girls. Both were rather pretty, but there was a girl of average height who was very pretty. Her most notable features were her surprisingly large, upturned, dusky green eyes, long lower eyelashes, and notably long, pointed teeth. Her hair was a dark moss green, and it reached just below her shoulders, except for a short clump that hung in the center of her forehead. Her hair also grew wavier and thinner towards the ends. He recognized her as the one who had made those strange noises when he asked for directions, and the other gave him directions. Before he could say anything, a peculiar squeak escaped the green-haired girl, and she threw a gym uniform at him, hitting him in the face. The class let out a gasp as she marched to her seat. The girl with black hair introduced herself as Momo. She apologized to her friend, citing that he had startled them, before pointing him to his seat just behind the green-haired girl who wouldn't even look at him. He just nodded, introduced himself quickly, and walked toward his seat. He tried to see if she would even look at him, but she kept her head turned and wouldn't allow him to apologize. Great, he thought. Class 1B. The bell rang, and in walked their homeroom teacher, Vlad Sensei, a very tall man with a bulky, muscular build. He has lightly tanned skin and a few visible scars on his left cheek and the left side of his thick neck. His hair is short and pale gray, spiked upwards away from his face, except for a small clump of hair hanging down over the left side of his forehead. He has small, thin eyes and a wide mouth with two prominent lower canines visible even when his mouth is closed. Good morning, class, he called out. Good morning, sensei, they responded. Welcome to UA. Today is your first day on the journey to becoming pro heroes. As such, much information will come your way today. I want you to understand that this is a competitive course where you will constantly be measured against each other. I don't want this to cause you to not look at your classmate as a friend or a teammate, he said. I want to see all of you pushing each other, helping to pull each other higher up the mountain. By working together, you can all achieve new heights. I am here to help guide you, to help pull the best out of every one of you. I have 3 years to ensure you go home safe at the end of your patrols. I want nothing more than to see all of you at every reunion. Vlad continued. If you need help, I want you to look to each other first, then come to me. Today, we will attend the orientation, and after lunch, we will assemble on the athletic field for a quirk assessment test. He saw all their expressions change at the word test. I don't want you to be taken back by the word test. This is a way for me to assess your progress up to this point and know where I should have you focus so you can improve. He smiled as they relaxed. This being our first day will cause a shift in our schedule. Normally, Mondays and Wednesdays will be what students call Hero Day. That is the day when all your classes are focused on hero training, and you have your practical hero training with your heroics teacher. This week will be Wednesday and Friday. I trust everyone has downloaded the UA application. He saw everyone nod. The app is handy for helping you navigate the school, reserve study rooms, reserve training rooms, and other such things. I will also be sending you messages via the app. Use all the available resources and tools we will provide, and you will always be better prepared. I recommend you read the information packets handed to you when you came into class today. Vlad looked over at his students, seeing them all looking at the packet but refocusing on him. I don't leave people behind. You will learn to do the same. This is the opportunity to form lifelong relationships and connections. We will start at the first seat and go left to right. You will say your name and quirk. After that, I want everyone to assemble in the hall behind Ms. Yaoyorozu and Ms. Tokage, where we will attend orientation. Yes, sensei. The class called back. Izuku pulled out his notebook and quickly noted everyone's name and quirk. At least he got to hear her name, Setsuna Tokage. Maybe he would get the chance to apologize for whatever he had done. Setsuna kept her gaze forward, though she could feel him behind her, her Adonis. She closed her eyes as his divine name was finally delivered to her. Izuku Midoriya, quirk animal form. Izuku noticed that there seemed to be a class missing during orientation. He heard it was their sister class 1A. He sat and listened as Vlad Sensei had been right. Much information was thrown their way, and the app was essential for scheduling. It was tedious, but relaying information to many teenagers would never have been that exciting. At lunch, he was glad they had offered a decent amount of vegetarian options. He loaded his plate up and looked for a place to sit. He saw the girls all sitting at the table, and he thought about talking to Tokage, but he didn't want to bother her at lunch, so instead, he took a seat with some of the guys from his class. There was an awkwardness as they didn't know each other, and this wasn't like moving from elementary school to middle school, where odds were a friend was coming with you. Those who knew each other were already sitting beside each other and talking. He sat next to Tagaru, figuring he could at least relate in some fashion. The guy had a mantis quirk, and Izuku could turn into a mantis. To his surprise, Yosei started talking to him as soon as he sat down. Hey, aren't you that guy who turned into a dinosaur and beat up a zero-pointer? Izuku saw the rest of the table freeze and look at him. Yeah, that was me, Izuku said shyly. The manga speech bubble showed a picture of Izuku turning into different dinosaurs. Izuku told him yes, and then it showed a dragon, and Izuku shrugged. I honestly never tried it. I did when I was little but it didn't work. Excuse me, but you can turn into any animal, Nato said. Doesn't it matter if it is extinct or not? Izuku nodded. That is a very powerful and helpful quirk. Do you retain your intelligence? Jiroda asked. Yes, I can think and even talk, Izuku said. What about you? Do you when you activate yours? Sadly, no, Jiroda said. That is why I called it Beast, though I can tell my friend from 4, so worry not about me turning on you in the middle of a battle. I can copy quirks with a touch, Nato said, almost reaching for Izuku. I would very much like to train with your quirk. You might want to get some special underwear before you do, Izuku said as the table went silent. You see, I change into an animal, not my clothes, so they tend to rip or fall off, and unless you want your junk hanging out when you change back. Awase laughed. I know you must have had that happen a lot in elementary school. Kids always use their quirks when they aren't supposed to. Izuku blushed and laughed. Yeah. The table started laughing. My mom found this special underwear that survived my transformation and other clothing. I don't know where she gets them now that I think about it. So what did you do to Tokage? Shitai said. I have no idea. I want to apologize, but there hasn't been an opportunity, he said, taking a bite of his salad. You don't eat meat? Sen asked. Nah, I have turned into those animals at one time or another. It just felt weird. I am a vegetarian, Izuku said. I couldn't go vegan. I love cheese and butter too much. That earned a laugh as the boys started talking and getting to know each other. Izuku was on his way out when he heard someone yelling, Hey you, with the green hair, wait. Izuku turned and saw the girl from the entrance exam. She had saved him from falling on his face when he tripped, and she was the same girl he had rescued from the 0-pointer. He had never gotten her name. The first time, she ran off before he had the chance, and the second was because he was unconscious. Although it may sound objectifying, he could not help but notice her physical appearance. She has a slender yet curvy figure, fair skin, brown hair, and eyes matching color. Her cheeks always blush pink, and her eyes are large and round with thick upper lashes. 2 more extended and prominent ones are on either side, while fewer but more individually pronounced lower lashes. Her hair is shoulder length with short bangs, and the style is bobbed with 2 long strands framing her face. Hey, Gravity Girl, he said, rubbing the back of his head. She stopped after a little hop that emphasized some bouncy parts. She tilted her head to the side, and a curious expression came across her face. Gravity Girl? She paused for a moment, then giggled. That makes sense. I never told you my name. She extended her hand. Ochako Uraraka, I am pleased to meet you. Izuku smiled. She had a quirky energy about her. He shook her hand. Izuku Midoriya, thank you for saving me twice, nonetheless. No, thank you, she replied quickly. Everyone was running away. I thought I was going to get squished, then suddenly, a green gorilla appeared. The 0-pointer comes up and goes and then you went all T-Rex and rawr. Izuku smiled as she described the fight with her sound effects very enthusiastically. She didn't even notice his class or hers stopping and watching. Then you started falling, and I was like, oh no, so I dove and was able to tag you from getting hurt from the fall. I wanted to wait and thank you until you woke up, but Recovery Girl said you were fine and needed rest, and I would miss my train. She noticed the audience, blushing, and pressed on. I was worried for a minute that you didn't get in when I didn't see you in class, but when I talked to some of them, they told me how silly it was. And that you were just in 1B, so I came looking, and bam, here you are. Izuku laughed. Here I am. It is nice to meet you finally. We didn't see your class at the orientation? Our teacher said it was a waste of time and made us take our quirk assessment test. He threatened to expel whoever came in last, Ochako said with a shudder. Holy hell, did he? Sen said, shocked. Ochako shook her head. Something bull about a logical ruse. She leaned in close. I don't like him very much. Hey, do you want to exchange numbers? We may not be in the same class, but we can hang out and study, she said as she tucked one foot behind the other, looking up at him through her eyelashes. Yeah, sure, Izuku said, feeling warm. He pulled out his phone as they tapped each other. I guess I will talk to you later then. Ochako smiled. Sounds good. She walked off as the girls in her class crowded around her, whispering. Setsuna stopped with the crowd to witness the interaction. This Ochako girl thought Izuku was cute, and Setsuna did as well. But she couldn't even talk to him, and every time she tried, her brain would short-circuit. It seems that girl Ochako has taken an interest in Midoriya, Momo whispered. Setsuna jumped. So, Set shrugged, doing her best to seem dismissive. She tossed her hair over her shoulder. Besides, I have you who could. Momo cut her off. Setsuna, I know you like to play, and I may not have much experience, but you are so free, but when it comes to him, you cannot talk, make sounds like a strangled cat, and run away. If you tell me it is nothing, I will drop it. If you tell me it is something I may not have any experience with, what I can do is support you. Set took Momo's hand and led her into the bathroom. Set looked around, making sure it was empty. Momo, I don't know what has come over me. As soon as I saw him, it was like holy cow. Then, when I saw him turn into a T-Rex, it was wow. You know how much I love dinosaurs. Momo smiled and nodded. Yes, I do, but you must talk to him at least. It doesn't seem this Ochako is passive looking to bid her time. She is quite bold. She approached him in the middle of the hall and asked for his number. Set. Is everything all right? Itsuka said, walking into the bathroom. Seeing Set and Momo standing close and talking to each other, Momo held Set's hand and immediately blushed. I am so sorry for interrupting, Itsuka yelled out. Momo smiled. No, Itsuka, while Set has decided to declare her love for me, I had to tell her that I had already pledged my love to you after that night. Momo blushed, looked down, and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Already blushing, Itsuka went nuclear as she began to stutter. That night, what are you? Momo's eyes looked wet. She crossed the room to Itsuka, her bottom lip quivered. Did you already forget? Were all those sweet words nothing but pillow talk? Set's and Itsuka's eyes went wide. If you will not work with me on my hand-to-hand combat, I must find someone else. Set nearly fell as she burst out laughing. Itsuka sputtered, then lightly punched Momo in the arm. She is a bad influence on you. Momo laughed and hugged Itsuka. I am sorry, Itsuka, but you are right. Our friend Setsuna is a bad influence. But our dear Setsuna has been struck by Cupid's arrow. You mean Midoriya? Itsuka said. Set eeped and turned red. What even Tetsu was asking about it? Set hid her face with her hands. So what do I do? Set lamented. You should start by saying hello, Momo said. During the quirk assessment, they were all on the field, and Setsuna kept looking over at him as he performed his tests. She saw him change into a different animal for each test, a hawk and gorilla, but no dinosaurs. Sadly, she understood that none of the tests would have required such a display. She was talking with Reiko and Momo when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned and saw Izuku standing there. She immediately felt her heart attempting to burst out of her chest. She was about to run when Momo grabbed her arm. Midoriya, Momo said. This is my friend Setsuna. She likes dinosaurs. Yanagi, would you mind helping me with something? She took Reiki's hand and walked away, leaving them alone. Hey, Izuku rubbed the back of his head nervously. I just wanted to apologize for this morning. I didn't mean to startle you. I hope we can be good classmates. Thousands of responses ran through her. I love you, take me, I am yours, can I have your baby, and many more. Nah, it's cool. I may have overreacted. She managed to say that. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and fist pumped internally. That's good, Izuku smiled. She immediately resisted jumping into his arms and kissing him. So you like dinosaurs? I do. They are my favorite animals, Set said, feeling herself relax some. I saw what you did during the exam. Really, he said, surprised. I would have remembered seeing you in my testing group. They both blushed at his turn of phrase. I mean, how did you see that? I got in through the recommended exam. That is why we were there. We were in the control booth. Set's voice started strong but took on a more shy tone as she finished. Cool, cool, Izuku said. So, is it only the T-Rex that you can turn into? Setsuna asked. No, I can do the raptor, brontosaurus, pterodactyl, triceratops, and many others, he responded. He leaned in and whispered, I can even do the baby versions. Setsuna is nearly blue-screened. That is pretty cool. Maybe you can show me sometime, Set said softly. I can do that. Maybe we can exchange numbers when we return to class, he said, hopeful. That sounds good. We can do that, Set responded. Momo and Itsuka stood there watching and smiling as they saw Set relax and be her usual self. Izuku bounced out of class, yelling goodbye to his classmates before running down the halls and toward the gates. He stopped and looked around, seeing Max and his girlfriend Maria. He ran over and jumped onto Max's back. The boy let out a startled yelp, and Maria went to immediately throw a punch but stopped when she saw it was Izuku. That is a good way to get punched, you know, she said. Maria was a tall girl and was commonly mistaken for a model because of her height and good looks. She stood 5 feet 9, with long, flowing green-black hair that hung to her knees, a sensual hourglass figure, and piercing dark green eyes. It was customary for her to be stopped on the street by boys and girls captivated by her. Yet she only had eyes for her boyfriend, Max. Izuku pouted, still clinging to Max. You wouldn't do that. If you did, I wouldn't turn into a red panda for you. It's a green panda in your case, Maria countered. Now, please unhand my boyfriend. Yes, please let go, Max whined. There is a reason why I opted for general studies. Max was not tall, only 5 feet 4. He had bright blue hair and eyes hidden by thick black frame glasses. He was very slender and looked like a stiff breeze would knock him over. The mystery of how he had won Miria's heart was a constant discussion amongst those who saw the couple together. Where is Sheena? Izuku said, looking around. She was talking to the professor, Max answered. Where were you this morning? I bet he overslept, Maria snickered. Hey, maybe, Izuku said. Looking around, he spotted Sheena's stunning red hair running towards them. Sheena! He yelled, waving her down. Sheena was a beautiful girl with stunning red hair and eyes. She had a slight build, but her smile was as bright as the sun, and she had an infectious nature. Sheena smiled, and Izuku turned his back. She gleefully leapt and landed on his back. To the train. My noble steed. He was about to become a horse when Maria chopped him on the head. Don't you dare, Miria said. Izuku and Sheena had the decency to look sheepish as she slid off his back. Sorry Maria, they said before laughing and walking towards the train. How was it in the big bad hero course? Sheena said. Not bad. We all had orientation, the other nodded. Then, after that, we had a quirk assessment, which was pretty cool. There were lots of cool quirks, and the other students were nice. I may have upset one of them, but after I apologized, everything seemed good. Remember to mind your manners, Miria said. Well, at least you apologized, Sheena added. Home. Izuku said bye to his friends and approached his house. He stepped past the gate and froze. They made him realize the many hours he spent as an animal when he was being stalked. He looked over and saw his neighbor to the right, Mr. Ito, looking out the window. To his left, Mrs. Hina was peeking over the fence. He dropped his bag and started to move in a crouch, his eyes sweeping his surroundings. With his hands low, he crept towards the door, looking for his stalker. He made it to the step. He would be safe if he could enter, just a few more steps. Suddenly, he was tackled from above. His stalker had sprung their trap. He was knocked onto and down the walkway, and his neighbors let out an enormous cheer. He rolled and attempted to kick off his assailant. He got his foot under them and tried to kick them off. His attacker rolled and turned it into a handspring cartwheel. Izuku scrambled to his feet. As he whirled, he was speared in the gut, sending him crashing down again. He tried to trap the head and lock them into a guillotine choke. A sharp blow to his ribs relaxed his grip, allowing them to pop their head free. He kept his legs locked, trying to keep them close. He caught the glint of the blade in the sunlight, and it came down towards him. He managed to grab the attack with both hands in a desperate measure to stop the attack. Then he felt another blade against his throat. You're dead, his opponent giggled. Mrs. Hina cheered, and Mr. Ito groaned. You owe me 1,000 yen, Mrs. Hina cheered. Izuku fell back in defeat. If I could use my quirk, I would beat you no problem, he groaned. One day, Himiko, one day. Nope, my little Izuku. She sat up her cat, her grin gleaming. You will never be better than me, and since you lost, you know what that means. Izuku sighed. Yes, I will be your kitty, but after I do my reading for class. I can live with that, She grinned, springing up and skipping into the house. "You're killing me, Izuku," Mr. Ito shouted. Izuku waved, grabbed his bag, and walked into the house. "How was your first day, Izu?" Himiko said from the kitchen. "Were you late?" "A future hero in training is never late. We arrive exactly when we mean to," he said, trying to sound wise. "Just in the nick of time," Himiko said, coming over with a glass of juice for each of them. Izuku nodded. "How was your day?" Izuku said as they walked over to the table. "It was good. Being a third year is nice," Himiko said. "I met with that lady from the Hero Commission today about taking their offer, but," Himiko shivered. "Something about her just made me feel icky. I think I am going to stick with Ms. Joke." "Well, if it isn't broken, don't fix it," Izuku said as he sat down to read, and Himiko returned to work on her homework. Himiko was also in the hero course, but she went to Ketsubutsu. She sat on the couch, staring at him until he closed his book, and then she started to do a happy wiggle. "What breed?" He sighed. "Munchkin," Himiko squealed. Izuku smiled and transformed as he was walking. With a bit of a struggle, he exited his clothes before sitting at the base of the couch, looking at her. Himiko lifted him and placed him in her lap. He got into a comfortable position and settled in, and she stroked his fur. "Love you, Izu," she said. "I love you, Himi," he managed to say past a yawn before he fell asleep in her lap. Himiko Midoriya running away from home is generally not the right answer, but it is the only answer in certain situations. So when Himiko Toga ran away, it was in the latter category. She had been so blood-starved that evil thoughts had run through her head while her little sister was sleeping. She didn't even realize the knife was in her hand. Thankfully, she regained her senses. She put the knife away, packed her backpack, and fled. She was found crying in an alley by a police officer, a kind woman with green hair and eyes. Himiko screamed, begged, and pleaded not to be taken back or sent back to that place. To be put back in the house where she was starved, beaten, and imprisoned. She didn't want to go. In a hysterical frenzy, she tried to attack the officer, but it didn't get her very far. Through the hysterics and sobs, the officer picked up on the fact that this poor girl needed blood. So when Himiko was placed in the back of the squad car, she assumed she would be taken back home. When the car stopped, she had expected to see her house, not a tiny butcher shop. The officer didn't say a word. They walked into the shop and emerged carrying 2 jugs filled with dark red liquid and a styrofoam cup. "I have gotten you some blood," the officer said. "I am going to uncuff you so you can drink it. Can you stay calm and not try to attack again?" Himiko's eyes widened as she stared at the jugs, following their movements with her head. The first drink was heavenly. The first glass was gone in seconds, then the second and third. Blood ran down her chin as she asked for more. The officer poured her another cup and retrieved some wet napkins to wipe her face. It was so gentle and caring that Himiko could only stare into those tender green eyes. What she saw made her weep. Her mother didn't even look at her most of the time, and when she did, her gaze was full of disgust and anger. She would dream of being looked at with love, compassion, and understanding. That was what she saw in the officer's eyes. Then the officer hugged her, soothed her, and let Himiko feel safe. Once Himiko felt better, she pulled away, wiping her eyes. The officer smiled so tenderly. "Better?" the officer asked. Himiko nodded. "More blood?" "Yes, please," Himiko whispered. "Now, I want you to take your time," the officer said. "Tell me why you don't want to go home." Himiko took a deep breath and told her why. She told the police officer about her quirk and her desire for blood. When the officer didn't recoil or look at Himiko like a freak, it emboldened Himiko. She talked about how her parents wouldn't let her have blood. How she would sometimes get it from an animal she caught or even a dead pet she came across. She craved it, needed it, and how her parents found it disgusting, evil, and vile and would punish her by locking her in her room. The longer she went without, the more she felt herself slipping away. Then, in the incident with her sister, Himiko said how much she loved her little sister and how the thought of hurting her scared her so much that she just had to run away. The officer sat there listening, taking notes, and asking questions. "Himiko, I am going to do everything I can to help you," she said. "And I will help your sister, but things will take work. I will be with you every step of the way. Can you be strong?" "You promise?" Himiko said. "I promise, I won't leave you, I will not abandon you," The woman held out her pinky. Trust me. Himiko took the woman's pinky with hers and shook. She was 8 years old. On her 9th birthday, she came to her forever home with her new mom and little brother. For her 10th birthday, she became Himiko Midoriya. Family dinner. She walked in and smiled. Asleep on the couch, she saw her daughter with her son curled up as a cat in her lap. She set the fried chicken on the table, gingerly took a seat across, and sat silently, watching them for a bit before she woke them up for dinner with a gentle kiss and a head scratch. They sat around the table, passing the food around. Once everyone was served, she nodded to Himiko. Each of the children took turns talking about their day, and Inko started getting more information from each of them. She was very interested in why Himiko didn't like the woman from the Hero Commission. Her daughter had terrific instincts, and Inko fostered this for Himiko to trust. She prodded gently and pushed Himiko to explain why she felt this way. Himiko told Inko that the lady from the commission was saying one thing, but Himiko thought she wasn't saying what she wanted from Himiko. Inko smiled when Himiko announced that she had decided to stay with Emi. It reminded Inko that she had to call the heroine about the picnic Emi had invited her to. She only lightly reprimanded Izuku for running late before she let him gush about all the different quirks in his class. He was happy to tell her about meeting Ochako at lunch and exchanging phone numbers. He explained that he had to apologize to Setsuna for startling her when he came into class. Himiko felt a tinge in her head as she coaxed the details of his interactions with Ochako and Setsuna from him. "Did you smooth everything out?" Inko asked. She smiled, hearing that everything seemed to be all right with the apology to Setsuna. "Oh, that reminds me, I won't be home for dinner tomorrow night. I am going out to dinner with Midnight," Inko said. "Where are you going?" Izuku asked. "I don't know, but it has an amazing desert. She said it would blow my socks off, something about pie," Inko replied. Himiko could feel her headache getting worse. It is a wonder that Izuku was even born, she thought. "You're all right, baby," Inko said, taking Himiko's hand. "Are the headaches back?" Himiko smiled slightly and nodded. Setsuna. She stepped out of Momo's car floating. A casual goodbye to her friends, she drifted into her house. She offered her big sister a blissful smile, ignoring whatever she had said. She wafted down the hall to her room, spread her arms, and fell upon her bed. She rolled onto her back, pulled up her phone, and stared at the contact. Izuku Midoriya. His cheerful smile and wave as he left the class, the call of his goodbye as he bounced away. She whispered a reply. She could barely focus on the meeting with Vlad Sensei after class, him thanking them for their hard work today and detailing their assignments for the following day. A poke in the side from Momo brought her back into focus. It also turned into a game of each girl poking the other while trying to stifle laughter and not get caught. Vlad Sensei ignored the girl's little game, and internally, he smiled. This year's class was shaping up well, and he felt very good about his students and how this year was going. Seeing 2 recommended students playing the same game he saw his daughters play was heartwarming. Usually, there was this fierce competitiveness that he hoped to curtail. He wanted them to compete, but he wanted them to be a team, to support and push each other. So he let the girls play. Setsuna felt pressure on her bed. Propping herself up on her elbows, she saw her mom smiling. "Good day?" "It was an amazing day," Setsuna said. "He was there, Mom. Not only was he there, but he was in my class." "Does this mystery boy have a name?" Her mother smirked. "Izuku Midoriya," Set said his name wistfully, making her mother smile. "The most perfect name that has ever been." "Now?" Her mother sighed. "Were you able to at least talk to him?" Set sat up more, her face showed mock anger. "Of course I did, Mother. I am your daughter, after all. I played it smooth, making him chase me a little and ask for my number." Set shrugged. "I gave it to him, of course. Let him know that I am not averse to talking. Figured we should be engaged by the end of the month." "Oh, engaged by the end of the month," her mother laughed. "Tell me about him." "Well, he is gorgeous, can't tie a tie, shape shifts into animals, and turns into dinosaurs, even baby versions, he claims." She says confidently that she knows everything. "What kind of person is he? What kind of student? What kind of hero does he aspire to be?" her mother said, despite her daughter's pout. "I am happy that you are so smitten, Setsuna." "I am not smitten, Mother," Setsuna countered. "You just don't get it, he is amazing." "No, Set. I understand that he is handsome and can turn into a dinosaur," her mother said. While those are great catalysts for getting to know him better, you should be doing just that. Get to know him better is all I am asking, Set. I don't want to see you get hurt. Fine, an exasperated Setsuna replied. I will wait until summer before announcing our engagement. Your restraint is praiseworthy, her mother said as she exited the room. Once the door was closed, I can't afford to wait too long. Who knows what that Ochako girl will do? Ochako. She walked into her bare apartment and said she was home to nobody. Instead, she sighed, set the tea kettle to boil, and called her parents to tell her about the first day. She pulled out her bowl of instant ramen and her notepad, doing some math to check her budget. The school offered lunch and breakfast. If she arrived early enough, she could skimp on dinner, stretching her budget a bit more. When her mother asked if she needed anything, Ochako told her no, it was a lie. There were several things she could use but needed. That was a different story. Her parents were not financially well off, so paying for an apartment for her in the city, providing a stipend, and paying her tuition were all too much. A failing construction business that, if they would just let her stay home and get certified, she could have helped save them so much in costs when it came to heavy lifting. But they had told her no, to pursue her dream of becoming a hero, to live her life and not worry about them. She had agreed to do that, but she would ensure she would rise to the top to provide for them. She wanted to make people happy, feel safe, and be a hero, but she also wanted to care for those important to her. Was that so bad? Aside from a few unfriendly boys in her class, at least all the girls seemed nice. She had protested the new shoes and book bag her parents had given her on the day she left home, but she was secretly thankful when she saw how pretty the girls in her class were. At least she could fake it for a bit. The first day was chaotic and not in a good way. The quirk assessment test, the threat of expulsion, and nearly getting in a fight with that loudmouth Bakugo when he called them extras and then called her round cheeks. She was about to slap him when Mina pulled her back. The other girls had complimented her on her vigor but told her that slapping someone was a guaranteed way to get expelled, no matter how much they deserved it. Toru came up with the idea of making sure he didn't come in first in any event, which set the girls to work. They did everything they could, talking and working together to figure out ways that one of them could place the highest possible in each event. As they walked off the field, Ochako looked at him and smirked. How does it place to score lower than some extras? She saw him grit his teeth, about to say something, but she turned back on him and walked away. She was happy that when she went to lunch, she saw him, the cute boy with curly hair and diamond freckles. Watching him turn into a T-Rex and battle the giant robot was amazing. An image she would never forget. When he fell, she did all she could to try and save him. It was that deed that earned her rescue points. Ochako wondered if she would have even made it in without them. She smiled, thinking of how fate had brought them together. She happened to be there when he tripped outside the gate. What were the odds they would end up in the same testing group? Then she got trapped. He was the only one to come to her aid, and in turn, she was able to save him. Then, to bump into him when he was walking out of the cafeteria, a minute either way, and she may have missed. Fate sent her all the signs, and her horoscope said she would meet someone special on the exam day. She thought that if she skipped eating at home and loaded up at school, she would be able to put aside enough money to go to the movies. She pulled out her phone and looked up what was playing. She smiled, seeing that Edge of the Universe was playing. Ochako. Hey Izuku, this is Ochako. It was so good to see you today. Are you free this weekend, and would you like to watch a movie with me? She hit send on the text and went to wash her fork from dinner. She heard her phone chime and ran over. Izuku. Hey, Ochako, it was also good to see you today. The movie sounds like fun. There is this movie I have been wanting to see called Edge of the Universe. It is a cool space opera movie. I wouldn't mind seeing that, or is there something else you want to see? Ochako giggled and jumped around, pumping her fist in the air. Ochako. I was hoping you would say that movie. I have wanted to see it. I love Norin Rad's movies. Izuku. I know they are so good. We can talk more about them tomorrow at school. Say, at lunch. Ochako nearly fainted. Ochako. Sounds good. I will see you at lunch tomorrow. Izuku. I will save us a seat by the window. Ochako neighbors heard a celebration erupt from the girl's apartment. Midoriya house. Himi, what are you doing with my phone? Izuku asked. Himiko turned and smiled. Oh, nothing much. I'm just answering a text for you. She tossed him his phone. Izuku quickly opened his phone and read the thread. Himiko, did you just set me up on a date? And how did you know my password? I just changed it yesterday. Because, little brother, I am just that damn good, she winked. Mom, Izuku has a date this weekend, she yelled. Izuku's mouth fell open. You bitch, he whispered. Oh, is it that girl he saved? Inko yelled. Yup. Himi smiled at Izuku. You can't back out now, she whispered. Have fun going shopping. Himiko laughed, walking down the hall. Izuku, we should probably buy you a new outfit for your date. Inko said, coming up the stairs. Mom. Izuku whined. It's just a new friend thing. Don't make it all weird. Nonsense. We will go tomorrow, and maybe you can get a haircut. You are getting a little shaggy, Inko added. We will go tomorrow after school. I have an early shift. I will pick you up. Izuku sighed, defeated. Yes, Mom. The perfect text. Setsuna had been staring at her phone for hours, during dinner, in the bath, now as she sat on her bed, a piece of hair at the corner of her mouth. She had sent dozens of texts in the group chat, texted some of her other friends who hadn't gone to UA. She agonized over the perfect opening text for her future baby daddy. 100 started and failed attempts. It had to be perfect. It had to be masterfully crafted, with just the right wording and the right amount of subtext. Convey that she thought he was cute and open to him making a move. Finally, inspiration hit her like a bolt of lightning. She typed it out and mulled it over. With a satisfied smirk, she knew that he would be all over her after she hit send. Setsuna. Sup. Nailed it, she screamed mentally. Izuku. Nothing much, you. Whoa, slow your roll there, my Adonis. I will not make you chase me that hard, Set thought. An hour later, she finally crafted the perfect response. Setsuna. Chillin'. The morning sun danced delicately through the window, falling ever so softly upon Setsuna Tokage's slumbering form. It was still 30 minutes before her alarm, but as her eyes fluttered open, she couldn't even be upset at the sun. She sat up, stretched her arms above her head, and with a little hop, her feet were on the floor. She smiled, looked around her bedroom, floated to her closet, and pulled out her school uniform. So this is love, So this is love, she sang to herself as she pulled out her makeup bag sitting in front of her desk. After all, she had to look her best. She fished out the eyeliner, mascara, blush, lipstick, and all the other tools she would need to knock his socks off today. So this makes life divine. I'm all aglow, And now I know the key to heaven is mine. My heart has wings, she continued singing as she blew a kiss to the mirror and carefully applying her eye makeup. And I can fly. I'll touch every star in the sky. With a satisfied smirk, she grabbed her hairbrush. So this is the miracle that I've been dreaming of. So this is love. Set danced around the room, slipping on her clothes and looking herself over in the mirror. So this is love, she whispered. She skipped down the hall, seeing her father sitting at the table, his back to him. She pounced and kissed his cheek. Morning, Daddy, she said. Morning, Princess, he said, shocked not by the affection but by the tone in his daughter's voice and the earliness of arrival to the kitchen. His youngest daughter was not what could be defined as a morning person. Trying to get her up early was harder than stopping the sun from rising, yet here she was. So what is the reason for you to grace us so early with your presence? It was just such a beautiful morning that I couldn't stay in bed any longer, Set said, smiling. I wanted to spend some time with my daddy before I moved out. Move out? Her father replied, confused. Did I miss something? Well, when I get married, I can't live here anymore. I need to live with my husband. I figured it would be by the end of the month, but Mom got all weird, so by the end of term, we will be married, and it will be a winter wedding, Set said as she skipped into the kitchen. He came on a bit strong but is so adorable I couldn't resist. You know how it is. We just texted and talked, hopes, dreams. It was all so magical. Their conversation, for the record, Set. Chillin' Izuku. That is cool. 35 minutes later Set. Did you read the syllabus? Izuku. Yeah 12 minutes later Set. Cool 47 minutes later. Izuku. Are you watching that new show about the dinosaur bones they found in Brazil? Set. Yeah, it's cool. Back to the morning. Her father looked at his wife. What did I miss? Our daughter is smitten with a boy in her class, she said. Not smitten. It is true love. Set yelled from the kitchen. True love. Setsuna Midoriya rolls off the tongue. Rolled omelets with scallions and cheese. A nice fresh salad. I am a vegetarian now. Okay. I am so lost, her father said as her mother sighed. I don't understand it either, honey. Our Set is in love, her mother said. You did hear the part where she said she would cook, right? Set no. Her mother yelled, racing to the kitchen. Ochako Uraraka, the sun's light had not crested over the horizon yet. She emerged from her apartment, and with a quick pet of the neighbor's cat, she was down the stairs. The emptiness of the streets would seem a bit lonely to some people, but Ochako found it peaceful. Her parents were always up early, no matter how late the night before they would be up to get ready for the day. People relied on them. They were responsible for ensuring that those who did had work. Their families had food, which they instilled in Ochako from a young age. Never forget your responsibilities. When she hit the pavement, she plugged in her headphones, hit play, and began her run. Ochako had her responsibilities. She was to go to school to become the best hero she could. She had her parents to care for. She had heard a rumor that they would put you on a scholarship if she could score in the top 5 in class and do well at the sports festival. She didn't know if it was true, but she wasn't about not doing everything she could in case it was. Besides, no one calls her a damn extra. Izuku and Himiko came down the hall in their workout clothes. They smiled, seeing breakfast plates on the table with little notes from their mom. They knew she had an early shift, but she woke up earlier to make them breakfast. The two stood at the door looking at each other. Say it, Himiko said as she put her earbuds in. Today, they're going to know how good we are, he said. Damn right, little brother, she responded. They stepped out into the rising sun and began their morning run. School Momo, Itsuka, and Tetsu were slightly terrified by the dreamy look on Set's face, her musing attitude as she gazed out the window, telling them of the beauty of the sunshine, the trees, and even how the air filled her lungs. Momo told their friends bye as she and Set had things to attend to. They encountered their counterparts, Shoto and Juzo. Set didn't even notice the glare that Shoto gave her. She ignored him completely, only acknowledging Juzo, who said good morning to the duo. Each had different activities today, as 1A had their first heroic class this afternoon, and 1B would have theirs tomorrow. Momo noticed that Set ignored Shoto, which annoyed him more. Set drifted along with that same blissful smile, softly humming some tune, as they secured the packets and the other items their sensei had asked of them. Set had just exited the teacher's lounge. She had gone to drop something off with Midnight from Vlad. Fate had it that they decided to take the stairs. It was then that Set heard a voice, the voice of her dreams, the voice of her heart, but his words shattered it. No, I can be there tonight. Just leave your bedroom window open. I love you. I will call you at lunch. Hey, I love you. Nothing will change that, he said before he stepped out of the stairwell. Set froze as she walked, bedroom window. Love, love. Her lower lip began to quiver. Her mom's words about getting to know him better echoed in her head. Large crocodile tears fell from Setsuna's eyes. Her vision became blurry as she fell back against the wall, and her breath came ragged as she slunk to the ground. Her knees pulled up as she held her head. How could she have been so foolish? He is so wonderful. Of course, someone pounced on him. All the color drained from her world. She sat there, her world crumbling, and her chest hurt so badly. She tried to stop the tears, but they wouldn't stop. The papers in her arms tumbled to the ground, her hands on her head as she cursed at herself, cursed the universe for playing such a cruel joke on her. To bring him into her life only to take it all away instantly, her dreams of laying in his arms, sharing their kiss under a full moon, dancing by the lake, slipping naked into the pool. She shook her head. All her fantasies were flooding her mind, and then, like a horror movie, she was thrown aside. Some other girl was there laughing and dancing in his arms. She watched as he turned into dinosaur after dinosaur, the girl laughing. That dumb bitch couldn't even name the dinosaurs and then had the nerve to say rodents were superior. The nerve of this bitch. She didn't even appreciate what she had before her, the majesty and the beauty of the T-Rex standing in the lake, bathed in the moonlight, the fireflies dancing upon the edges, the way it shook the water from its body. The sound of the bell ringing signaled the beginning of class. She gathered the fallen papers and wiped her eyes. She trudged up the stairs, stepped into the empty hall, walked toward her class, and opened the door. Momo, Itsuka. and Tetsu could tell she had been crying. The whole class knew something was wrong. She saw them all staring at her, and then she locked eyes with him, and her heart broke again. He looked at her with concern and care, and she felt her emotions slipping away. She handed the papers to Vlad King. "I'm sorry, sensei. I am not feeling good. May I need to head to the nurse's office," she said quickly, the tears already beginning to fall. She turned and fled from the room. She didn't even hear the calls from her friends. "Sir?" Momo said, jumping to her feet. Vlad nodded, and Momo took off in hot pursuit. Momo bolted out of the class in time to see the stairwell door close. Momo burst in and heard the pounding of footsteps above her and choked sobs. She took them to the stairs, taking them two at a time. "Set," she called out, only to get no response. She could see her as she was gaining ground. Set reached the door to the roof right in front of her. Momo crashed after her and caught her in a few steps. She grabbed her by the hand and spun her around. She knew that Set could easily escape her if she wanted. Instead, Set turned and wrapped her arms around Momo. Momo could hear the heartbroken sobs coming from her friend. She held Set tight, doing her best to calm her down so she could understand what Set was saying. After about 10 minutes, through hiccups and many tissues, "He has a girlfriend," Set lamented. "Of course, he has a girlfriend, so why didn't he say anything?" Momo knew immediately that she had to be talking about Izuku, but Momo had no experience with any part of this problem. She didn't have any friends till Setsuna, and she didn't have any romantic experience or any real experience. She had many romance novels to pull upon, so that is what she did. Thinking of everything she could, the facts of the situation. Set is so love-struck. The chance of her being in the stairwell and the lack of any real conversation between the two, despite what Set might say otherwise. "Is it possible you misunderstood what he said?" Momo said, soothing her friend. "No, he said he loved her and how he would go to her tonight. He told her to leave her bedroom window open for him," Set countered. "While the conversation seems intimate, are you sure he was talking to a girl?" Momo said. "Are you saying that he was talking to a boy?" Set said. "Then I never had a chance." "That is a possibility, Setsuna," Momo said. "Setsuna, you won't find the answer on the roof, and if he does have a girlfriend, then I am afraid that is something you must accept. If he does and he is still accepting flirtations from other girls, then he is not worthy of your love and adoration." Set looked up at Momo, who smiled. "Dry your eyes, come back to class with me." "I don't know if I can," Set responded. "If it is answers you seek, they are not to be found on the roof. I know it may be painful, but you should come back to class." "We can figure it out," Momo said, handing Set another tissue. "This being in love shit sucks," Set said as they left the roof. When they came out and took their seats, it was quiet. She smiled at Itsuka and Tetsu as she sat down, and their second day continued. It was hard knowing he was there. She would catch a glimpse of him now and then, and each time, her heart ached. Time just dragged on. Every tick of the clock was agony. During the first break, Momo spoke to Tetsu and Itsuka in the hall. Some girls came to ask Setsuna if she was all right, but she lied and said she was. Izuku was lost in his problems while texting someone on his phone. She looked over her shoulder at him, one part of her hoping he would come to check on her and the other thankful that he was staying away. Tetsu wanted to march back into class and ask him if he had a girlfriend or what that conversation was about. Momo and Itsuka had to grab him to stop him from making the situation worse, as obviously, he was having a private conversation that would lead to questions about eavesdropping. When they returned, they saw him staring at his phone and talking with Awase and Nato, but he seemed wholly focused on his phone. Momo noted that he wasn't smiling. He would be happier if he were talking to his girlfriend and arranging a nighttime rendezvous through a bedroom window. Momo blushed at the implications, but if her love sneaked into her room at night, she hoped he would at least be excited about it. Aside from the drama with Set, the day progressed slowly. Today was a slate of their standard classes: modern Japanese, mathematics, history, communication, poetry, applied science, and English literature. Then lunch came, and the situation got more complicated when he didn't go to sit with the class and instead took a seat next to the window at a two-person table. Of course, this caught Set's attention and that of her friends, so Class 1A came in. All the girls were giggling and crowded around Ochako, who, once she had her tray of food, walked right over and sat across from Izuku. Set's heart was once again dealt a blow. Ochako and Izuku. Hey, Izuku, Ochako said, smiling as she sat down. She noticed he seemed distracted, and her hopes sank a bit. Oh, hello, Ochako, please sit, he said, smiling for her. Is everything okay? She said. Yay, no, kind of, he said. If you don't want to go to the movies, she said, trying to give him an out, or though she didn't like it. No, that sounds like fun, he paused. It is just some family stuff, my cousin, he said. Oh no, are they okay? Ochako asked, reaching out to pat his hand. They are, thank you, Izuku said, smiling. So, does Saturday sound good? He pulled out his phone and looked up movie times. Yeah, Saturday sounds good, Ochako said with a smile as she leaned forward. I would like to pay for the tickets since I invited you. Then let me pay for dinner. I mean, would you like to get dinner with me? He said nervously, unsure whether to curse his sister or thank her for setting him up on a date. My treat, of course. Ochako blushed. That would be nice. I know a nice place near the theater. We could meet there at 5? He asked. Okay, she answered quickly. This was coming together nicely. Do you need to call your cousin? He looked at her questioningly. You keep looking at your phone. I do, I am sorry, he said. Go call them family if it's important, Ochako said. He thanked her and left the cafeteria. Ochako smiled and walked back to the table with her friends. She noticed that a group of students from 1B were looking at her. A girl with green hair and eyes that looked at Ochako, her eyes moist. Ochako tilted her head. Maybe the girl was also interested in the interesting Izuku Midoriya, but Ochako was not about to surrender just because someone might be sad. She sat down with the girls from her class who were waiting anxiously, almost as anxiously, for their first heroic class. Even the bored-looking girl with purple hair and earphone jacks dangling from her ears was paying attention. Setsuna, she was heartbroken and angry, terribly sad yet convicted, and wanted to punch that Uraraka. Was her Adonis a cheating bastard, or was Momo right? Was there more to this story than she knew? Something that would return the light to her world. She looked over to the window, seeing the ghostly memory of Ochako and Izuku sitting there, touching his hand, the smiles, the blush. Then he left suddenly, staring at the phone. Was there something troubling her, Adonis? At least, the darkness of her world shifted to a hazy gray. She hated this. She hated the feelings rolling and turning over in her gut. She could still feel the highs and joys from this morning. Dancing around the kitchen, the smoke filling the kitchen, the way her mother took the flaming pan and doused it in the sink. How excellent the taste of her cold cereal was, how everything was so much brighter. She wanted to know, but how could she ask him if he had a girlfriend? If he said no, would she believe him? She knew nothing about him. She hated that her mother was right. Why couldn't they just run off into the sunset? Why wasn't it when their eyes met that he didn't feel the same as she did? How could she know if she didn't find out the most crucial thing, whether he had already spoken for? It would hurt that the sun would never rise again, but she could try living in a world of darkness. Maybe she could embrace the world of vampires, shed her love of dinosaurs, and wrap herself in darkness. She wouldn't be able to see another dinosaur and picture the majestic green T-Rex who battled the zero-pointers, the Adonis that swept into her life, stole her heart and the sunshine. She looked across at Reiko, who happily ate a BLT sandwich. Set's stomach grumbled at the sight of tender, juicy bacon. Hey Reiko, what do you know about vampires? The pale girl visibly brightened. Oh, Setsuna, vampires are some of the most interesting of the creatures of the night. I must confess that in one of the nighttime investigations, I met the most enchanting of creatures. He called himself Donovan, a large monster of a man, but devilishly handsome, skin of such an alabaster sheen. Izuku. He was on his way out of the cafeteria when he heard his name being called and not by a student. He turned and saw Professor Midnight. Yes, Sensei, he said, coming to stop. Midoriya, I was just wondering, Midnight fidgeted. Does your mother have any hobbies? An artist or musician that she really likes? She is a big fan of the Sound of Fury, Izuku said. They are supposed to be playing some big concert on Tokyo Bay at that new Sphere venue. I know she wanted to go, but the tickets were crazy and sold out in about 3 minutes. Midnight's eyes went wide. Thank you, Midoriya. She shouted as she took off in a mad dash down the hall. He was happy to receive the message from his mother that shopping had to be cancelled as she had to get ready for her dinner with Midnight. the pro-heroine had received some last-minute concert tickets for The Sound of Fury. They were playing a sold-out show at an exclusive new venue that was on Tokyo Bay. Her mother was over the moon about attending the show since the band debuted 6 years ago. Fortune favors the bold. Setsuna was better after lunch. The world was still gray, but she was preparing for her life as a creature of the night. On a side note, Reiko would go out at night hunting ghosts, vampires, and such. She said she had encountered a ghost, a man who could talk to spirits via his quirk, a demon named Lequa, a lawyer by trade, and the vampire Donovan, who even had pointy fangs. She was going on another ghost hunt this weekend to see if they wished to join them. The location was an abandoned asylum with 9 confirmed murders and tons of paranormal reported activity, including the disappearance of an actual reality star who ventured into the asylum. If Set's life crumbled, she may have to join Reiko, as that would be her life then. She lamented that she would have to sell all her clothing and start dressing in black. She even looked up some makeup styles for her possible new life. Momo was intrigued by the ghost hunt on multiple levels and was torn about joining. Itsuka was out, and she swore if their friends went, they would be doing it without her. The things that bump in the night scared her. She felt they would do her the same courtesy if she left them alone. There was no way in hell that she would be going. Tetsu just shrugged and said that it was nothing to be afraid of. It was just weird quirks at work and nothing to be scared of. That was how Tetsu volunteered to accompany Reiko. It quickly spread throughout the class, to Reiko's delight. She felt that it would be an exhilarating adventure. Izuku was mainly quiet during the rest of class. His usual energy level was down, adding to Setsuna's speculation that maybe Momo had been right. When the final bell rang, she saw him jump up, about to dash out of the class. Her heart was thumping against her chest, her mouth was dry, and her legs were shaking. She surprised Momo by bolting out of her seat and running to cut Izuku off. Izuku, she said loudly, but she didn't care. The class noticed. They had wondered if something had happened between the two due to the different vibes they had today compared to yesterday. Izuku stopped, looked at the door, and then his phone. What is it, Setsuna? I am in a bit of a hurry. I just have to know, Set gulped, trying to mentally prepare herself for the new life as a creature of the night. Do you have a girlfriend? The class gasped. No, Izuku said, confused. No, I don't. I hate to be rude, but I have to go. Setsuna nodded and stepped aside as he dashed out. The gray and black of the world exploded in a burst of rainbow light as everything came alive. The birds outside who had been holding back their songs all day suddenly burst into a choral choir. The clouds fled as the sun burst through. The wind that once carried the foul evil of forever rain dissipated as Setsuna Tokage jumped around pumping her fist. Her eyes closed in exuberance, then she opened them, and the whole class stared at her. She would have exploded if she had managed to turn any redder as she walked over to her seat and grabbed her bag. Just asking for a friend, she said, stepping out of the room. As soon as she hit the hallway, she let loose a strange yell and fled, Momo, Itsuka, and Tetsu in hot pursuit. I wonder who her friend is, Awase said aloud. The entire class groaned. What? He said defensively. Izuku ran out of the building and saw Shina doing the same. They ducked between the buildings. She turned her back as her shape changed into a mouse, ran out of his clothes, turned into a green Saker falcon, and was airborne and gone. Shina turned, gathered his clothing and bag, and walked out to find Max and Maria approaching her with her bag. They looked to the sky, seeing him race away. Shiketsu, it took him about 6 hours before he got where he needed to be. He looked at the dorms, circling, looking for his target. He saw plenty of open windows. Then he spotted an open window with a green bandana hanging out. He dived inside, tumbled, and stopped. As he shifted, he saw Cousin sitting on her bed. The room was dark. A tray of half-eaten food was on her desk, along with a tray of various vegetables and a bowl of soup. His cousin's dark brown eyes were red from her crying. Her light brown hair was held in place by a green hairband he had given her for her birthday, and she wore a white tank top and brown shorts. She let out a hoarse call of his name. Ever thankful for his shorts and tank top from his mom, he stood up and opened his arms as she barreled into him. You came, she said, crying once again. Of course, I did, Camy, he said, holding her. We're family. This is what family does. If I called you. First train out, she said. He pulled her down, sitting next to him on the couch as she gathered herself. What happened? I called my mom, and she was drunk again, she said. She relapsed, with no one there to watch her. She didn't even make it 3 days before starting to drink again. Damn, that sucks, Camy, he replied. Did you call Uncle Nico? I called him, she sighed. He went over. She was drunk and causing trouble. I wanted to call your mom, but they are still not talking after the fight. Camy, my mom loves you, you know that, Izuku said. She wouldn't have offered you to come live with us if not. Your mom, she doesn't want help. She does it enough to stay out of trouble then. I know, but I could manage it when I was with her, but now that I am not, Camy lamented. I want to be a hero, but if I can't even save my mother. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, Izuku said. We both know that. Camy could hear the pain in his voice. I'm sorry, Izuku, she began to say, only for him to cut her off. Is that food for me, he said, pointing to the tray. Camy nodded. 'Cause I just flew in from the UA boy, and boy are my arms tired. He wiggled his eyebrows, earning Camy a small smile and a light smack. You are so dumb, she said, shoving him off the bed. I am not, he protested, but it made you smile. Are you not going to get in trouble? She said. Nah, Himiko knows what is going on, and mom is on a date in Tokyo, Izuku said. If she makes it home tonight, I should be good. But you have to fly home and go to school tomorrow, she countered, feeling guilty for asking him to come to her. I will just take some cat naps, he said, popping a carrot in his mouth. They should get me through the day. How intense could our first heroic class be? You're probably right. There's nothing to worry about, she said, feeling better that he was there. Camy and Izuku were close. They were the same age, third cousins, but they always got along so well. They were more brother and sister. Camy had come to stay with them a lot as her mother had a drinking problem and got into trouble frequently. The final straw came when Camy's mother, Aunt Leisha, got into serious trouble with some evil people, and Inko came in and managed to pull her out. Aunt Leisha was not appreciative, and the two of them fought. They disowned each other after that, but Inko loved Camy and was always there when Camy reached out. Wait, who is Auntie Inko on a date with in Tokyo? Camy said suddenly. Midnight, Izuku said with a smile. Oh, can you message Himiko and tell her I made it safe and to leave my window open? For sure, Camy said, grabbing her phone. After he ate, he had Camy set the alarm. She curled up with her as a cat so he could get some rest before flying home. He woke up at midnight, kissed her cheek, and watched him jump out her window and take off into the night sky. He made it home faster with a tailwind, crashing into bed around 5 a.m. He was exhausted. Setsuna, her world had come to life once more, and she was happy. Though there was a bit of cautiousness to it this time, she was still working on their winter wedding. She had found the most adorable dress and even a possible venue. Itsuka and Tetsu may have rode in with them this morning to ensure their friend was all right. They had spent most of the night talking on the phone. Set had begun to lament that maybe she drove him off when he didn't respond to a few text messages, but they calmed her, saying he may not have his phone, or whatever has been bothering him requires his full attention, and she should be calm. They got to school with the duo separating as Momo and Set had their tasks to do. They saw their opposites, and the game between Shoto and Setsuna of who could ignore the other better was in full effect. They were surprised when they came to class and saw him in class asleep at his desk. It was good that Setsuna's thoughts were not visible to her friends, though they stopped her after she took some photos. Throughout the morning, she sees him fall asleep during every break period. He wakes up at the bell and pays attention for class but looks exhausted. Nato sets a can of coffee on his desk, and Izuku looks up gratefully. Are you alright? Nato asks. Yeah, man, you look like a zombie, Awase says, stopping beside his desk. Setsuna listens intently. I am just super tired. My cousin had a problem with her mom, he said. I went to make sure she was okay. That is very nice of you, Niran says beside him. She is more like a sister than a cousin, he says with a smile. I had to fly to her, then fly home, so I am tired. Using your quirk outside of school is dangerous, Nieto said. It could get you in deep trouble and possibly expelled. I know, Izuku said, rubbing his head, but as long as I keep it small and don't turn into some large animal, I can normally get away with it. Most people don't notice a green bird. I have been wondering if you can't keep your clothes while you change, and you said your mother was able to find you clothes that stay with you. That is some support level clothing. How did your mother afford it or even find someone to do it? Nato asked. No idea, his name is David, Izuku said, taking a drink of his coffee and thanking Nato. Never met him, but I have heard my mom mention him. Setsuna started to tune most of the conversation out. It was his cousin, and his cousin needed him, so he ran off to comfort them. She thought I couldn't believe I doubted him or worried that our love would not be accurate. Setsuna Midoriya, how great it sounds. At lunch, she bristled a bit when Ochako approached him. She couldn't hear what they said but walked away smiling before joining her class. Izuku was on his way out when life decided it had other plans. Hey, Deku, an ash blonde sitting by himself said, slamming his tray and stomping towards her Adonis. She noticed that 1A stiffened, but they focused on him, not Izuku. How the hell did your dumb ass, with you lame ass kitten quick, even make it into UA in the first place? He said, getting in Izuku's face. How did a loudmouth asshole like you get in? Izuku said, taking a step back. The cafeteria went silent. What the fuck did you say? Katsuki Bakugo growled out. Oh shit, my bad, Izuku said, turning. He was next to a group of 1A boys. Excuse me, he said, setting his tray down. How did a loudmouth asshole like you get in? He said again, but this time he also said it with sign language. The gasp from the cafeteria was audible, as was some laughter that seemed to anger Bakugo even more. What? Bakugo said again. Are you deaf and stupid? Izuku sighed. How you get into school, loudmouth asshole, he said, sounding every single word out. Do you know who the hell you are talking to, you damn extra? Bakugo seethed, small explosions popping in his fists. Oh my goodness, are you still on about that? Izuku sighed. No one is as good as me. I have the best quirk, next all my blah blah blah. I bet you don't even have the best quirk in your class. You will never be the next All Might. Maybe an 8th rate endeavor, because you are both assholes. Shoto ears pricked up at that. I should beat your ass right here, Bakugo growled, stepping up to Izuku. You can try, Izuku said, tilting his head and leaning in. Try it, Kachan, he whispered. I'll make you famous. Bakugo saw red and reached back to throw a punch, but suddenly Izuku was gone. He swung, hitting nothing but air. He was tripped, and his face planted into Izuku's lunch tray. The laughter erupted as he sat up, his face covered in salad dressing and bits of lettuce and tomato stuck to it. Izuku was off to the side, smiling. Holy cow, it worked, Izuku thought. I owe Himiko a deluxe pudding. Bakugo stumbled to his feet and turned around, about to attack the grinning Izuku, when suddenly he was bound by a gray capture scarf. What the heck is going on here? The homeroom teacher of 1A bellowed Vlad King behind him. Aika looked at the man who either was cosplaying as a hobo and nailing it or was about to faceplant from exhaustion. Let me go, I am going to kill him, Bakugo said, practically frothing at the mouth. I am going to kill that damn Deku, that stupid extra. I will be the next number 1, you dumb bastard. Midoriya? Vlad questioned. He swung first, Izuku said, shrugging, looking innocent. I just dodged. He may have tripped on my foot, but other than that, I never touched him. Ask them, he said, pointing to the boys from 1A. He isn't lying, sir, said a boy who, from his look, could have been Bakugo's brother, with a similar hairstyle and sharp teeth, but this boy's hair was red. Ajiro is correct, said a blonde whose hair looked like it had a black lightning bolt dyed into it. The rest of the table supported Izuku's claim. Aizawa, the hobo cosplayer, looked at the table and then at a blue-haired boy with glasses, Mr. Ida. Bakugo appeared to see Midoriya and began to hurl insults towards him. Mr. Midoriya responded in kind, and Bakugo attempted to hit him, only to miss his attack and trip. I did not see if Mr. Midoriya tripped him. Honestly, I didn't even see him dodge, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. Though Mr. Midoriya did use some vulgarity. Narc, another class member said, a boy with purple orbs for hair. I will leave you to handle your student eraser, Vlad said, raising an eyebrow at the frothing boy. Mr. Midoriya, for violating the language guidelines, you are to serve morning detention for the next 2 days. You will arrive at the classroom no later than 6 a.m. to assist the recommended students in their morning duties. Yes, sensei, Izuku replied. Setsuna wanted to hug her homeroom teacher. Well, at least I will be awake for heroic class, he muttered as he walked out of the cafeteria. Mr. Bakugo, with the incident yesterday during your heroic class and today's incident, let us talk about your 2-day suspension and week of detention, Aizawa said, pulling the sputtering Bakugo away. 1A girls' table. That was hot, Sue said. The rest of the girls at the table turned and stared at her. What I say, what I think. Hey, I saw him first, Ochako replied, blushing and causing the table to burst out laughing. The girls of 1A Mina looked at Ochako, who was still staring at the exit as if Midoriya would somehow magically reappear. So girl, do you have a plan to snag the piece of broccoli or what? Mina asked. Mina was energetic, her quirk acid came in tandem with her mutated appearance. She had pink skin, slightly paler pink hair, curly hair, and 2 small horns protruding past the curls. Her eyes were enchanting black sclera with yellow pupils adding to her exotic look. Mina loved gossip, especially if it was about romance. It was her favorite topic. Her hobby was shipping people together, and she fancied herself a bit of a matchmaker if anyone asked. But the year had just started, so there wasn't a lot of information to go on. That didn't mean she hadn't started her portfolio to get her creative juices flowing. All the girls seemed top-notch, the boys in her class, well, she wasn't impressed so far. Relax, Mina, she already got his number that first day, remember, Kyoka Jiro added as she ate her pudding. Kyoka Jiro was a slender girl with dark purple hair and black eyes. Her quirk was evident as if it were earphone jack. The girl said jack was dangling from each ear. Kyoka was pretty, had a rocker chic vibe, and a strong sense of speaking out against what she perceived as wrong. Her outburst during the assessment test was the loudest, and her calling out Bakugo during the first heroics class led to Momo and Sue having to hold Kyoka back after he had gone too far. Chill a bit, Mina, Toru said. Ochako walked up and was all like, I like ya, and I want ya. Toru was just as energetic as Mina. It may be from the girl's quirk of invisibility, so she had to vocalize to share her feelings. But if not, I agree with Sue, that was damn hot. It was kind of badass, Kyoka added. The table looked at her, making her blush a little. What, that dude is an asshole. I would have beat him up if you all didn't hold me back, fucking dick. I agree with Kyoka, ribbit, Sue added. If Eijiro wasn't tough, it could have been much worse. But Ochako has made her move. Attention refocused on Ochako, who tried to look away. Dinner and a movie Saturday, she said with a smirk. The table erupted. The dinosaur of 1B. Izuku was walking down the hall when he heard his name being called. He turned and saw Nito, Awase, and Toguru walking toward him. What the hell was that? Toguru said first. Good job showing that loudmouth idiot what time it was. That was, Izuku shrugged. Katsuki Bakugo. We went to school when we were kids, and when he got his quirk, he got all high and mighty about it. People told him it was great, so that made him great blah blah blah. Your quirk is versatile as hell, Awase said, confused. Why would he give you shit about it? Basic stuff. I was little, and at first, I could only turn into a puppy or a kitty, just baby versions, Izuku said. I only had to deal with it for a year or two after that before we moved. But I would bump into him occasionally, and he would be on his high horse. He is just a dick. Well, today, you struck a blow for 1B's superiority. Nito said dramatically. The others looked at him with raised eyebrows. Well, at least you put that loud mouth in his place. That I will agree on, Izuku said. I didn't even see you move. How did you do that? Toguru said as they walked towards class. My sister taught me that, Izuku said with a smile. She is wicked at hand-to-hand combat. She has been teaching me. Is she a pro hero or something? Awase asked. Not yet. She is a third year, Izuku said proudly. She goes to Ketsubutsu Academy. That is a fine institute, Nieto said, stroking his chin. Not as fine as UA, but a good school. Did she not try out for the UA? Why didn't you go to Ketsubutsu? She said UA seemed to value Flash more than she cared for, and she wants to be an underground hero. She didn't want her name, and her quirk flashed around the world during the sports festival, Izuku said. I always wanted to go to UA, so I applied here and to Ketsubutsu in case I didn't make it. Sensible, Awase said with a smile. Well, are you excited about our first practical heroics class? Damn right. I can't wait to beat all of you so you know who the best in the class is, Toguro said. Our first steps towards greatness begin soon, Nito said again, earning raised eyebrows. I wonder who our teacher is going to be. Izuku said. Rookie teacher of practical heroics. All Might sat in the teacher's lounge looking at the clock. It was almost time for the second class he was an instructor for, but the first was for 1B. Yesterday. He wanted to forget about yesterday. The first class of his teaching career had not been a complete disaster, but it had not gone as well as he had envisioned. He had thought that a simple 2 exercises pitting them in the roles of heroes and villains would be a simple affair, nothing to worry about, barely an inconvenience. Maybe having them fight each other on the first day when he hadn't had a chance to see how they used their quirks was not as good of an idea as he thought. His protege had performed very well, he had been brave and encouraging to his teammate, but what he hadn't considered was the drive and competitiveness of one Katsuki Bakugo, who seemed to take the whole presence of an opposing team as a profoundly personal affront to his very existence. He was annoyed when the opposition did not surrender, his teammate told him to calm down, and when his protege Eijiro stepped up to fight him directly, things went from bad to worse. He had come across Eijiro after seeing the boy working out and cleaning up a park that had been neglected for years. He watched the boy even contact Toshinori to learn more about him. The spur to action for Eijiro had been twofold. First, he wanted to help out by giving the neighborhood back a place for kids to play. The second is that he was ashamed. He had witnessed an incident where there was a large man with an animal mutant quirk. The man was lost and looking for directions, but his quirk, a warthog, and the tusks were causing issues with him being heard. Things escalated, and he tried to step up but froze. Instead, a girl in his class stepped in and de-escalated the situation, making him feel weak and small. So, he wanted to change and work on himself to be the man he wanted to be. This was the first step on the journey. It made All Might think of the time when he was weak and couldn't do anything, how he decided that even without a quirk, he would change and do all he could to make the world a better place. That led him to Nana. That single decision had changed his life, just as this single decision would change Eijiro's life. He had spent the night reading over the files of 1B a bit more closely than when he had 1A, including taking the time to sit and talk with their homeroom teacher, Vlad King, a much more fruitful endeavor than when he tried to speak with Eraserhead about his class. He had planned to watch the quirk test on the first day but had been caught up with a demanding cat in a tree-type situation, but the cat was a girl with a cat quirk who was challenging to coax down. Thankfully, another girl came by from Ketsubutsu from the look of the uniform and stood there staring until the girl agreed to come down. The student from Ketsubutsu skipped away before All Might could even thank her. He thought this set of trails would go better than the other one. What was the worst that could happen? Lesson 1. What could possibly go wrong? The class sat in nervous anticipation of the first practical heroics class. The bell hand rang, and they were all staring at the door. It opened very slowly. Then, a booming voice filled the room. Excuse me, I was wondering where any of you fine young students could direct me to the next crop of pro heroes. All Might stepped into the room, one hand shading his eyes as he scanned. You wouldn't be those future heroes, would you? He stopped, coming to a slightly off-center stop at the front of the room, hands on his hips and a beaming smile. He was garbed in his Golden Age costume, trimmed in blue and red, and had a long flowing cape in gold like most of the costume. The class, of course, was stunned when he walked in. Now they just erupted, some saying his name and others just making noise. I believe I am in the right place, All Might smirked. But you can't start your road to becoming the heroes dressed like that. A remote flashed to his hand, and with a press of the button, a panel at the back of the room opened, revealing 20 numbered cases. Now, young heroes, grab the case matching your student number, get change, and meet me at Training Ground Epsilon. With a flourish, he left the room. It took the class a moment before they all grabbed their cases and began their first step toward fulfilling their dreams. Can something be bad and good? Depending on who you ask, the good started immediately for Setsuna Tagaki. In the future, Setsuna Midoriya, check the girl's notebook. She had been paired with her future husband, father of their 18 children, ravisher of her womanhood, master of heart, keeper of her dreams, torchbearer of her lust. Again, check her notebook. It is all in there, I swear. They had been cast as heroes against the dastardly villains of Nato Monoma and Senkaibara, but that was not a big deal. Set could have been told to fight their heroics. Teacher, All Might. If she had said this would end like this, she would have kicked him square in the balls with glee. First, when her Adonis stepped onto the field of battle, he stepped out in a black bodysuit that clung to his muscles, and holy cow, did he have some muscles? Setsuna had to stop from drooling over that 8-pack. The best part, the best, most perfect part, was the broad purple stripe down the center to his thighs. Purple, a different shade of purple than hers, but purple. The gloves and boots were accented with the same purple. A metal belt with various chambers and round buckles completes the look. Setsuna wears a purple, scaly mask over her eyes, a simple bodysuit with a matching design, and black knee-high boots. She also wears black fingerless gloves with purple, scaly knuckle guards and pale orange 3-piece wrist guards. Additionally, she has a black belt around her waist with a yellow jewel embedded in the center. They nearly consummated the marriage when he told her he liked her style. Momo was smiling, watching her friend almost fall apart, just talking to the object of her affection. She politely thanked Izuku when he complicated her on her hero costume. Momo's costume had undergone some last-minute changes for which Momo was thankful. Momo's initial costume had exposed quite a bit of skin, sure to make her famous with those who liked such things. Momo's hero costume consists of a high-collared, sleeveless crimson leotard with silver lines at her waist and around her arms. The costume has been modified to include a silver inset shirt covering the opening, initially exposing her skin from her neck to just below her navel. She also wears red gloves with silver trim that reaches her biceps, calf-length red boots without heels, and pants that hug her legs but have an opening at her hips matching her leotard, exposing some skin. Additionally, she wears 2 gold utility belts around her waist. She has attached a high-tech bracer designed for her and a scouter-style headpiece that gives her access to her composition information. The cape is longer and made of titanium-reinforced material, reaching down to her knees. All other costumes canon. Now Setsuna managed to get a few words out, but she almost broke apart and floated away when Pony said they looked like a real hero team. She would have to thank her for that later. The worst part was that they were the last team to compete for the day. She did get to see Momo and her teammate Manga Thrash Kosei and Hiryu, so that was fun. She wasn't sure how a speech bubble could blush, but seeing a dusky red color the entire time was highly amusing. Itsuka and Niran managed to secure victory over Tetsu and Jiroda. Then they took the stage. The plan had been simple, and he turned into something small. She carried him stealth entirely to their objective, and they won. The thought of the role reversal of her having him in her hand, of how she would lavish him with affection when given the chance and make sure he knew that he was her Adonis. Izuku had tried to get some ideas from Set, but she wasn't talking much. He assumed she was highly focused. She was, after all, a recommended student, so there was probably pressure on her to perform well. Everything had been going well. They had made it to where the bomb and their enemies were, but the sneak and tag failed, and the battle had commenced. Nato had been yanked into the air by Setsuna when suddenly he exploded out of his clothes, and a gigantic blue whale came crashing down. The building collapsed as he landed. Izuku dived and grabbed Setsuna's head as a beam fell and whacked her in the back. Instinctually, her body pulled together as the 5-story building fell upon itself. Sen dove and grabbed a naked and unconscious Nato before he dived out the window. This was not the best part. The best part was when she came through a minute later. A bit bruised, a little sore, buried under a building, but she was safe, protected even. She was looking up a green triceratops. The bad part is they were trapped. "You okay?" it asked. Izuku asked. The thoughts that ran through Set's mind were not fit to be shared. "Beautiful," she whispered back, her hand reaching and touching his jaw. Her eyes watered at the beauty of a dinosaur protecting her, her Adonis, and Izuku. "Sorry I didn't hear you," he said. "Are you okay?" Setsuna had never wondered if a dinosaur could blush, but she would have seen it if the light had been better. "I am fine," she managed. "A bit bruised. What happened?" "Nato somehow copied my quirk when I wasn't looking and turned into blue whale, collapsing the building on us," Izuku said. "Your head got hit by rubble. I caught it as we fell to protect you and Puppy. Here we are. This was the first thing I could think of to survive a building being dropped on it." How long have we been here? Set managed to say, staring at him the best she could, wishing there was more light. A few minutes, he said. I am sure they are looking for us. Are you going to be able to hold out until then? She asked. I will keep you safe, I promise, Izuku said back. Setsuna now knew what it was like to see a dinosaur smile. So, Set know any good games to keep our minds occupied from getting crushed to death. She felt a tremor run through his body. This was causing a tremendous strain on him, the form holding the building. He was trying to distract himself. 20 questions? She asked. Sounds good, he responded, trying to control his breathing. Question 1, she said. She was about to ask him to marry her, but she stopped. While she was head over heels for him, she didn't know how he felt or if her mother had said anything about him. Right now, they were still alive. If they were about to die, then all bets would be off the table. For now, please keep it simple. Why do you want to be a hero? That is easy. I want to make people smile, feel safe, and be aware of the mistreatment of animals, Izuku replied. Same question. Technically, my quirk is a mutation. Mutants who look mostly human like me get a pass, but those like Gang Orca have to work twice as hard to get the recognition they deserve, Setsuna said. I want to be a top hero to help dispel the mutation stigma. Most people can't tell, but if you look closely at my skin, it has a scale pattern. What is it like to be a recommended student? Izuku asked after a moment. A great first step. Also, I met Momo, and she quickly became one of my best friends, which is a plus, Set smiled. It just means that all my hard work is paying off, so there is no reason to slow down. Okay, my turn. What is more important, beating the villain or saving the civilian? Easy civilian, Izuku responded quickly. Same question. Civilian, Set said smiling, glad that she liked the answers given. Who do you look up to? My mom and sister, Izuku responded, his legs trembling. What do they do? Set asked curiously. My mom is a police detective, and my sister is training to be a hero at Ketsubutsu. She is adopted, and her birth parents mistreated her because she has a blood quirk. But after she came to live with us, she became the best sister I could ever ask for. I love her so much and can't wait till we are both pro heroes so we can work together. Izuku said, his legs trembled. Set noted he said nothing about a father so that she wouldn't bring that up. If you could be any animal, what would it be? Izuku asked. Tyrannosaurus Rex, Set said very fast. I love dinosaurs. When I was a little girl, I would ask my parents for a baby dinosaur every year for my birthday or Christmas. When I found out they were extinct and what that meant, I cried and cried. Set let loose a little laugh. Aside from almost being crushed to death, being this close to a dinosaur is a dream come true. When I saw you turn into a T-Rex at the exam, that was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Wow, thank you, Izuku said. Most people saw wow or neat, but I have never been called beautiful for anything. That is a crime because you are beautiful, Set muttered. What? Nothing, Set said. What is your favorite animal to turn into? That is super hard. I might just be a dinosaur now, Izuku laughed. Cats if I want to sleep, birds because I love to fly, being a dolphin in the ocean is amazing. There is just something about flying, Set responded. I can sorta fly, but I love going up and looking at everything, especially at sunset. That is the best, isn't it? Izuku agreed. I love that as well. If we survive this, maybe we can do it one day. I would like that, and we are going to get through this, Set said, her hand on his jawline. I want to get through this to ensure the boy I like knows it. Oh, you like someone? Cool, that is cool, Izuku said. He thought Set was beautiful, and though she seemed a bit distant, it was because of all the pressure on her, and he didn't say it, but he noticed during the quirk assessment that her skin had a scale pattern. It gave off a subtle glisten when she sweated. It was very eye-catching. Is he someone in our class? Yes, Set said softly. You are a brilliant and pretty girl, Setsuna. I am sure he will be over the moon to know you have feelings for him, Izuku said, being supportive. I hope he feels that way, Set said. Have you ever had a girlfriend? 2. Izuku said. I dated one of my best friends, Shina. Izuku laughed. It was just so weird we broke up 2 days later. We tried to kiss, and it was yuck. The other was in junior high. She was nice. I guess gothic was her style. She liked the dark and mysterious stuff but had this other side that cared about people and the world. But she suddenly had to move something about her father. Izuku paused. You. Nope, never had a girlfriend. Set said, eliciting a chuckle. There was one boy I liked in middle school, but it fizzled before it got anywhere, so I hope the one I like now. The rubble around them shifted. She heard him groan and felt his body trembling. It was then she could smell the metallic odor of blood. Izuku, are you bleeding? A cut on my back, Izuku grimaced. Keep talking to me, though. Tell me about this guy. Of course, he is handsome, beautiful even, Set said, looking up. She didn't see the Triceratops. She saw Izuku there, floating above her. The animal was just an outline. I don't think he knows it, though. That is a good thing, right? If he knew it, he might be all smug, Izuku said. I want to get to know him better. He just blew my socks off the first time I saw him, Set continued. I think he is a really good guy. I know it deep inside. That sounds awesome. Izuku smiled. One of his back legs buckled. If you need a wingman, I will help you. What is his name? I can do some recon. I am not ready to tell you yet, Set said shyly. I get it, Izuku said. What about you? Set said, changing the subject some. Isn't something going on between you and that girl from 1A? Ochako. Izuku answered. No, not really. We met at the entrance exam. I tripped and almost kissed the concrete. She saved me. Then you saw what happened with the 0-pointers. So, do you like her? Set probed, her heart clenched in her chest. Maybe as a friend, Izuku answered. She is cute. We are supposed to go to the movies this weekend, but I don't think she is into me like that. What if she is? Set pressed. That would cool, but I don't know her. I would want to get to know her better. I know you better than I know her. Granted, this is because this is the most you have talked to me, Izuku said. Oh, why did you want to know if I had a girlfriend? I was asking for a friend, Set lied. She wanted to scream that this guy she liked, the one she thought was beautiful, was him. She overheard that he may have had a girlfriend, which broke her heart. As this friend in our class? Izuku said, his curiosity piqued. Yes. I know you can't tell me her name, Izuku said. What is your ideal future? Top 10 pro heroes. Married. Kids. Know that I am doing something good, making a difference, Set answered. What about you? Same. Add in running an agency with my sister and wife, Izuku paused. I like what you said. Knowing I am making a difference, that difference between hoping and knowing is huge. It is, Set said. It's like hoping someone is the one and knowing someone is the one. I like talking with you, Setsuna, Izuku said. After we get out of here, we should do that some more. I would like that. Please call me Set. All my friends do. Set smiled. And after this, you are most definitely my friend. You saved my life. Sure thing. Set. I am just saying I am holding up a building that has to earn me some brownie points. He laughed, his entire body trembling.
Oh, it does, mister, Set replied. We are going to get out of here, I promise. You are doing a great job. So, can you change into a baby dinosaur? Positive, Izuku responded. How about this? After we get out here and all rested up, you show me, and I will tell you who the boy I like is and the girl who likes you, Set said, making that promise to herself. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Maybe we can double date, Izuku laughed. Okay. So you have to promise me you will go on one date with her, Set added. No problem, I can promise that, Izuku said. She heard him groan. The copper smell was getting worse. What is happening? Set said. I heal pretty fast. The cut is healing, and then the weight is pushing whatever is cutting me, opening the wound again, Izuku said. Then they heard their names being shouted. Cover your ears. Set took them off and curled up into a ball to protect them. First, she heard him roar. It made her entire body vibrate, and she loved that part. Down here. We're here. Try to hurry, this is heavy. The silence was only for a moment. Set put her ears back as they waited. We are coming. They heard Momo shout. Just hang on, just hang on. Knowing that someone was coming for them renewed Izuku. He just had to hold on a bit more, just a little bit longer. Aside from the death threat part, this is the best time I have ever been trapped under a building, Izuku said. Set laughed. How many buildings have you been trapped under? Counting this one, but they always say you never forget your first. And you made this special, Izuku said. Set nearly exploded at the innuendo. Well, I am talented, she said, getting her composure. I bet you are, Izuku said without thinking. Then, the innuendo of the encounter rang in his head, and he sputtered. Set laughed, glad he couldn't see her. They started to hear rubble being moved. They called out. When a hole was opened, and light came in, they cheered. Set reluctantly broke apart and went out. As she floated past, she saw pieces of rebar sticking out his back and a broken support beam. All Might ordered everyone back as he began to throw more rubble aside. The rest of the faculty had arrived, and Cementos created a half-dome to keep the rubble from falling in as they broke the support beam off near the base to relieve the weight of it pushing into Izuku. All Might dropped next to him. She made it, right? Set is safe, Izuku said. All Might could hear the exhaustion in the boy's voice. Yes, she is being treated now, young Midoriya. Nato and Sen? Izuku asked, his body trembling. Cuts and bruises, but they will be fine, All Might smiled. Now, young Midoriya, we need to get you out of here. What will happen when you revert to normal form? Will the rebar push through? No, as soon as I shift, it should fall free, but the damage will be there, Izuku said. So there are going to be some holes. I understand, All Might said. Can you hold for a few moments longer? Yes, but not much, Izuku answered. He didn't have to wait long. Recovery Girl was brought in with some of her assistants. You can release now, All Might said. You did magnificent, my boy. Izuku smiled, his form blurred as he fell unconscious. Recovery Girl got to work immediately getting him triaged. Once that was accomplished, they moved him to the medical wing. They had sent the rest of the class to get changed and go home for the day. All Might deflated once he was in the teacher's lounge. His second class had worsened even worse. He had almost lost a student today. Nato was going to need counseling, and Bakugo needed counseling. He was in over his head. He needed help, so he chased away the dread and made the call he never wanted to make. Hello, Master, he said. I know it has been a while. I need your help. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.